Hello and welcome back to the Homes Politicast. It is a nice rainy Friday afternoon out there. So glad you could join me today. So here we are, Grand Haven High School Curriculum Director, Resents, Grand Haven Community. Interesting revelation here. So, many parents have started attending their school board meetings upon learning that they had almost no control over their child's learning and that some teachers are using their platform to teach harmful ideologies to children. Some parents are motivated enough to run for the school board all by themselves. I spoke to Tommy Vanhill and Thomas Hoekstra this week, and we will see what they have to say about that also. Since I didn't address Grand Haven's mayor last week, we're going to be talking about it a little bit this week. So that's on the docket. Grand Haven High School Curriculum Director said she resents Grand Haven's community. As I said, that's the title of the show. We'll be talking about that. We'll hear her in her own words. And Proposal 3 lets children make their own decisions about sterilization. Children are making decisions about sterilization. I don't know how good that'll be. But as we look at this proposal more, it's getting worse and worse. And finally, we look at how mail-in ballots are processed. I'm Anon Don, and this is the Homes Politicast. Alrighty then. So, we start today with our interview with Tommy Vanhill and Thomas Hoekstra. I talked to both of them about Walter Mac Davis's article on them. It seems that not only is he disqualified himself from speaking about Grand Haven School Board, as he has no children in Grand Haven High School, but he's not even able to accurately depict either of the people that he's written about so far that we've talked to. So, I asked Tommy Vanhill actually just today about that accusation. Mr. Tommy Vanhill was happy to tell me about how his children aren't quite school age yet. Here he is. He said that you there's a disqualifying fact about you that you homeschool your children. Is that accurate depiction?
So, no, my oldest daughter is 3 years old, and my other one's only 11 months old. So, they have not even started school yet. But with all the issues in the schools, I'm not sending them to public school. So, that is homeschooling is what we're going to be doing. But my hope is I can help fix the public schools and they can attend the public school. But right now, I would not be sending my.
So his hope is that the public school would be such that he is able to send his children to public school. Now, Walter Mac Davis wrote that he homeschools his children. I wonder. Actually, I don't have to wonder. I know that Walter Mac Davis did not reach out to either of these two guys because Mr. Hoekstra tells me that. So, it's easy for us to see that Walter Mac Davis does not have any kind of authority here. He's already disqualified himself from speaking about the issue, and even if we disregard that, he doesn't know about which he speaks. He hasn't talked to the two guys that he's lambasting here. He hasn't even tried. He hasn't even reached out to them. So, that's Mr. Tommy Vanhill. I think I've got a couple other questions for him. He seems like a really, really nice guy, really level-headed. I asked him about, the transgenderism in the schools, the funding that the federal government is trying to pull from the schools, that they want same-sex bathrooms, or they want people to be able to use the restroom that they choose to use, and they're threatening, well, funding for school lunches. So, give me just a second. Let me find that clip in this video.
Against a public school to be able
Encouraging teachers in that direction. So
for the lunch money, it's been brought up from federal.
There it is.
That if you want lunch money, you have to do the non-gender bathrooms. So
Really?
there's a lot of push from federal and the MDE.
So, in order to get federal funds to give kids lunches, you have to go woke.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's interesting. I had heard that there was something in the works on that.
Yeah, and I think that's still where it's at, as far as I'm aware.
It's still in the works?
I think so.
Okay, so it's not fully developed yet into, like, they're pulling funds right now.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And so as a school board member, what can you do about that? Do you have any plans for that?
Yeah, I mean, everything gets approved through the board, so I mean, really all we have to do is just vote no. Yeah, that's really about it. And I don't. So to be clear, yes, he's just gonna say, fine, we'll sacrifice the funding, because we are not going to allow our school to become a circus for anyone believing anything they want and acting on it just willy-nilly. All right, so that interview is going to be up in full. Tommy Vanhill, really, you can see him taking his time, thinking through his answers. Love that. Love seeing that. Relatively new father. His first child is only 3 years old, so I really hope that he can get the schools to a point where he does feel comfortable sending his little children to the public school. Now, Mr. Hoekstra, I don't know why I want to call him Hoekstra. Mr. Hoekstra, I talked to him a little bit. We got a phone interview with him. And we're just going to play this answer from him. I'll let you know what the question was here when we listen to it. That, and do you have anything to say about their involvement with Mary Jane Eving? Oh, yeah. So the question was about the Momentum Center of Grand Haven getting involved in the school, outside school, or outside influences into the school. His answer is just phenomenal. It is very conservative, and I think all the parents are going to enjoy hearing this from a candidate for their school board. That, and do you have anything to say about their involvement with Mary Jane Eving? That's a repeat. Sorry.
You know, and here again, I'm not there. You know, some people argue, so you don't even have a kid in the school. I do work with youth. You know, with my church, I work with youth. I've also attended a lot of youth camps, and I guess I'm going to sum it up like this. If I was a school board member and you were an outside agency, nonprofit, coming in, and I don't care what background you are, what religion, what anything, that's totally irrelevant, you're going to have to show me how you are going to affect or improve reading, writing, arithmetic, accurate history, and science. Because Grand Haven Public Schools, we are an educational provider. Nothing more, nothing less. We are not a medical provider. We do not provide psychological services. And when you start getting into these things, you know, we're also not religious advisors. Mm-hmm. So if it's not education based, I am going to question the need for it. I'm going to question funding it. I'm going to question donating computers to it, et cetera, et cetera. Because I can't say this strong enough. You know, when you have a minor child, and if the parent wants a math teacher to counsel their child on a sensitive subject, whether it be sexual, emotional, whatever, that's between the parent, the math teacher, and the child. But otherwise, that math teacher, it's against the law to provide medical services or psychological services without a license, without parental consent to a minor. Furthermore, Grand Haven Public Schools doesn't carry medical malpractice insurance.
Mm-hmm.
You're opening yourself up for a lawsuit. So, I mean, and I could be way off base, but yeah, I know education has changed since I've gone. I know it's even changed since my son, who graduated 4 years ago. But yeah, you start getting into that area, and that's dangerous.
So again, I asked him as well about the homeschooling, and he said that no, his son graduated 4 years ago from Grand Haven High School. His current child, his youngest daughter, does not go because, again, he's seen concerning things. But what I really want to focus in on is not the inaccuracy of the reporting from Walter Mack Davis. What I really want to focus in on is just what he was talking about. Grand Haven High School is not a psychology, it's a, what do you call that? A therapist's office. They have a school psychologist, they have a school counselor, but that's not what they're there for. They don't have medical malpractice insurance. They are losing students left and right, which is another thing Mr. Hoekstra and I spoke about. And maybe what Grand Haven High School needs is a couple lawsuits from parents where their children have been counseled in a bad way from Grand Haven High School, and the parents say, that is not what we sent our child to school for. Now, I hope that it doesn't come to that. And I hope that Mr. Hoekstra, Mr. Vanhill can get on the school board and make a difference here, that they can support teachers that are going to be teaching your children correct things, like, boys are boys and girls are girls. But barring that, maybe what Grand Haven High School needs is just a big, fat, healthy lawsuit. So both of those interviews are going to be available on the YouTube page. I'm going to be putting them up. Obviously, the audio only one is audio only, so I'll have a picture of Mr. Hoekstra up, just to, so you can get a sense of who that is and have a face behind the voice. All right, so just one more issue here, just one more thing here about the Grand Haven School Board. So this Julie Norcoli spoke or wrote in to Grand Haven Tribune. So it's a letter to the editor, and it was about how for 7 years a total of $1.2 million was embezzled, stolen from the people of Grand Haven. That's your taxes. The board did not find that for, again, like I said, 7 years this was happening. They weren't checking on the funding that they were approving. They weren't making sure that it was going to the right places. So Julie Norcoli is quite incensed about that. If I can maybe interpret her emotion a little bit here, she's questioning whether or not the board does care to reassure the taxpayers that they're doing everything. She worries about the lack of transparency about it. And now I spoke with, again, while I was speaking with Mr. Hoekstra, he said, maybe they're all over it. Maybe they are on this and they are trying to get to the bottom of it. But the fact is that $1.2 million is gone, and that it could have gone to questionable places, like the Momentum Center. As I've reported before, the Momentum Center, Brian Wheeler donated quite a bit of money to the Momentum Center as he was embezzling from Grand Haven High School. So your money is going to pay for the Momentum Center in Grand Haven. Julie says, no, this isn't what we want. And she says the public should be voting for Roger Williams, Thomas Hoekstra, and Tommy Vanhill. Okay. So, appreciate that from Julie. Appreciate hearing from Tommy and Tommy Vanhill and Thomas Hoekstra. So, staying in Grand Haven, we're going to move over to the curriculum director. Now, Mary Jane Epping, obviously we've talked a lot about her. She works very closely with the Momentum Center. And why does she do the things she does? Why does she seem to work against the children and the parents of Grand Haven, the city of Grand Haven? Well, I'll let you tell you. I'll let her tell you in her own words.
I left Grand Haven to go to school. I discovered that the world doesn't look like Grand Haven, Michigan, and it was uncomfortable. And I became resentful to my community that they hadn't prepared me to have the conversations and to talk with others like everyone else seemed to have those skills.
I have light-colored skin, and I have the experience of a light-colored skin middle-class person. There were very few people that looked different than me, and so when I moved out of town into a bigger city, I felt a little resentment that my own hometown did not provide me with experiences of what the world looks like beyond its city limits.
So she's focusing a lot on what people look like. She's got a lot of resentment for her hometown. How much of that resentment does she feel gives her the right to use her platform as a tool for the left? Well,
Are people, what's it like to have dark skin? So we're still a little bit handicapped because we reside in Grand Haven. As a curriculum director, it hit me. If I can't go to a protest, how could I leverage my job, my position, to bring that important learning to the 6,000 students that attend Grand Haven area public schools?
Well, how can you do that, Mary Jane? Well, you can partner with the Momentum Center. You can have them writing curriculum for your student groups, like the Gay Straight Alliance and other groups that are leftist in nature. There are a lot of different ways that we've talked about on the show. You can go back and you can look at the different ways that Mary Jane has oh darn it that Mary Jane has used her position to influence Grand Haven. I just got totally thrown off because I'm supposed to be saving these hyperlinks, which totally forgot about. So I'm going to start doing that a little bit more now. I can grab those other two hyperlinks and put them up in the descriptions. So Grand Haven hopefully will have a new school board very soon. They'll be able to look at these directors, curriculum directors, teachers, people that are shoveling leftism down our children's throats. They'll be able to reverse course. They'll be able to put some pressure on the superintendent to hire people that are not going to push leftist ideology. Most of the people in Grand Haven don't want that. Grand Haven does trend a little bit more blue than maybe Allendale, but I don't think the majority of kids or the majority of parents in Grand Haven want this being taught to their children. All right, so give me just 1 second here because I just closed something that I might need. And it was, so I'm gonna just go over how a mail-in ballot is counted, because The Detroit News did this. I thought it was a good piece for them to do. It's something that I'm interested in looking at, and something that sheds a little light on why our laws cannot be just upended. Why we have certain things on the books, like signature verification. Seems like a big thing. You want to know. Well, you know what? Let's just go through the article. So, whether a state requires voters to request an absentee ballot or participates in universal mail-in voting, all ballots cast by mail or dropped off at a drop box are vetted to ensure their legitimacy. Election officials log every mail ballot, so voters cannot request more than one. Those ballots also are logged when they are returned, checked against registration records, and in many cases, voter signatures are on file to ensure the voter assigned to the ballot is the one who cast it. Now, they say in many cases. I'm quite sure that it's in all cases because they have our signatures. We sign our driver's license. If you have a voter, or if you have an ID card, then you have your signature, which is how it should be, because then we use our ID to register to vote. We get our ballot. They check our signature against the signature on our ID, and they know that the correct person cast the ballot. Well, so what's the problem here? Well, when you have when you have a Secretary of State that decides that she's just not gonna do signature verifications, that looks a little suspicious. Makes people uncomfortable. Might even lead to some people saying that the election was rigged. I'm not saying that, but it may lead to something like that. So we continue. Still, mail-in ballots are one of the most frequent targets of misinformation around voting, despite fraud being rare. Different states have different ballot verification protocols. All states require a voter's signature, while some states have additional precautions like having a bipartisan teams compare that signature to a signature on file, requiring the signature to be notarized or requiring a witness to sign. In Arkansas, you must return proof of voter registration or a copy of your ID with the ballot. The states, including Georgia, Minnesota, and Ohio, you have to submit your driver's license number or state ID card number, which will be compared with voter registration records before your vote is counted. Okay, so this is other states they're talking about. Let's see if they get to Michigan. Let's see. Yeah, they just talk about other states, which is weird. In almost every state, mailed ballots can be tracked online through a unique barcode on the envelope, allowing voters to watch the movement of their ballot until it is counted. Ballot security features and ballot sorting at election offices help weed out any counterfeits. Though election officials say fake ballots have not been a problem in U.S. elections, a Georgia investigation into allegations of counterfeit ballots in the 2020 election found no evidence to back up the claims. So there was a similar thing in Michigan. You know, the Democrat or the Republicans were saying that a lot of ballots were manufactured and then mailed in under voters that were registered but had not voted. Either were dead or their address was wrong. I know Steven Crowder. My goodness, the name just wasn't coming. Steven Crowder went to a few of the voters' houses, quote unquote, or their addresses, and found empty lots, abandoned buildings, abandoned houses. So there are, security is in place, like having people register to vote on their own rather than automatically registering them, cleaning up the ballot rolls, which Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson still has not done. She's had a lawsuit on the books for 2 years that requires her to clean up the ballot rolls. She's not doing it. And then she goes in 2020 and gets rid of all the signature verifications. I'm not saying, now hear me when I say this, I'm not saying that there was a bunch of election fraud. I'm saying we need to follow the laws in our books, because if we don't, then, I'm just going to be suspicious. I'm always going to be suspicious. And that's not good. It's not a good thing for our country if all of our citizens are suspicious of the elections. All right, so really quickly, the Detroit News says vote yes on Proposal 1 to reform state government. That's the thing that allows a congressperson to sit for 12 years in the House of Representatives or the Senate. They say that it gets them out of office sooner, but really it keeps them in office longer. At least one office. It's really easy for them to hold that incumbent spot. And 12 years is twice as long as you should be able to serve in the House of Representatives. So they're doubling the amount of time you can spend in the House of Representatives. Now, you wouldn't be able to move over to Congress. I mean, you wouldn't be able to move over to the Senate, but most congressmen, I think, don't move over to the Senate. There are how many state Senate spots? Not anywhere near as many as House spots. But generally, I'm not sure that serving in both is a common occurrence. So this is going to, the state government reform will allow our representatives to just sit in office for years and years and years. They do say vote no on Prop 2. And they do say no on Prop 3. They say it's an extreme response to abortion. They recognize that, this is not just reenacting Roe. This is going far beyond Roe. And I have an article looking at something that I hadn't considered, but is right there. I read the text of the article or the proposal, and just missed it. Just missed it completely. So the Federalist noticed it. They say in less than 1 month, if Proposal 3 passes, children will have the right under the Michigan Constitution to walk into one of Planned Parenthood's 12 so-called gender-affirming facilities in the state and, without parental knowledge or consent, obtain puberty blockers. And with Planned Parenthood of Michigan promising gender-affirming care via telehealth in the coming months, Michiganders' kids won't even need to leave their house to obtain these sterilizing drugs. Now you say, oh, Don, you're just being silly. There's no way that Prop 3 says that. There's no way that it allows for Planned Parenthood to just send sterilizing drugs, to send puberty blockers to children without their parents' consent. That's just silly. Well, that's right here. Every individual has a fundamental right to reproductive freedom, which entails the right to make and effectuate decisions about all matters relating to, including but not limited to, sterilization. I cut out all the words that are not underlined because they are inconsequential to this. But it's right there in the text. An individual's right to reproductive freedom shall not be denied, burdened, nor infringed upon unless justified by a compelling state interest achieved by the least restrictive means. So, this, it applies to both men and women. It's not just about abortion. This is a radical proposal that I didn't even realize. I read over this right here on the show. Didn't even realize that, wow, they are making a way for transing our kids without our parents' knowledge. So, I mean, if you're listening to this show, you're probably already not voting for Proposal 3. But, oh, geez, just this is not good stuff. I do not like. Every time I learn more about Proposal 3 and more people are thinking about it and ruminating on it, I'm just like, this is really going into our Constitution? Gross. So, moving on from our Constitution, back to a similar... You know what? No, we'll go to petition for the recall of the Grand Haven mayor. So, this guy, Jim DeVries, filed a recall petition against the city's mayor, Mayor McNally, Catherine McNally. He says, I believe he got the votes. This is from October 17th, or October 7th. Sorry, updated October 7th. So, McNally, or DeVries, is attempting to have McNally removed from office for, let's see. So he says, I voted for McNally for office, and I watched her after she was elected mayor, that she went away from what she told me she was going to do. That upset me. Now, I wish that they would have followed up and said, well, what was it that you elected her for that she has not done? What did she claim that she was going to do? That would have been a good thing to ask somebody, with a petition to remove a politician from office. And it's a question that I'm going to be asking DeVries as soon as I get a hold of him. Now, he says she initiated the ballot change for marijuana that got thrown off the thing. Some rather imprecise language there. That upset me because the people of the city voted to have recreational marijuana. But the decision was already out of her hands. So she had the marijuana petition thrown off the ballot because she doesn't want marijuana being sold and bought in Grand Haven. Then he continues, there was the Karen Lowe thing. We talked about that actually on this show. Karen Lowe has apparently 2 residents, one in Grand Haven, one elsewhere. She uses the one in Grand Haven very, very rarely, so she's not really a citizen if she's not living in Grand Haven. I fully support Karen Lowe being thrown off the Grand Haven City Council because she's not living there. If you're not a resident, you probably shouldn't be on the government of a city you're not living in. That just kind of makes sense to me. And I'm not really mad about marijuana being thrown off the ballot. I don't know how much Jim DeVries smokes pot, but I'm going to be asking him, really, what were the promises that Karen McNally made to you? Because if she threw marijuana off the ballot, then she probably wasn't super pro marijuana before, this whole thing started. I can't see her just flipping on that and saying, yeah, I'm super pro marijuana. Oh, wait, no, I'm super against marijuana. So we actually have a release from Mayor McNally. She says, and it's quite long. She cites a couple of sections of our law of Grand Haven Charter, declaring vacancies in office and filling vacancies. So she's got a couple laws backing her up. I mean, there's no precedent. There's no reason that she shouldn't be able to do this, right? So she's got the laws cited there. She's got an analysis of why she thinks Miss Lowe should not be a part of the city council. She provided council members with copies of public water records from Grand Haven Department of Public Works that show a problem with Mrs. Lowe's claims of residency and inhabitancy at 92 Poplar Ridge in Grand Haven. Let's see. It says that no one has inhabited the cottage in the last 8 months from mid-September 2021 while she was campaigning for office until late May 2022. So there was no water being used at her residence for 8 months. I think that's pretty good evidence that she's not living there. Generally, when people live at a place, they use water. I know I do. I get a water bill every single month. If she's not getting any water bills, she's probably not there. Yeah, so Jim DeVries, I'm going to be asking him about what he's got, a problem with here, because I don't see an issue with Mayor McNally. I don't know. If you do, go ahead and put it in the comments. Let me know what you think about Grand Haven's mayor getting thrown off for challenging somebody's residency. So, just one more thing. Kind of goes along with Grand Haven School Board, but just on the other side of the state, which is great. This is both sides of the state are active and a part of this. So, Detroit Free Press says that there were over 600 people in attendance at the Dearborn School Board meeting, including Christina Caramo. Matt DePerno was there. There's another one, I think. Where was the other one? It doesn't say what the other one was. But I know Christina Caramo and Matt DePerno were there. So, the article goes like this. LGBTQ speakers and others who voiced support for their community were loudly and repeatedly booed and jeered at Dearborn Public School Board meeting Thursday night as Republican candidates attended to show their support for protesters opposing certain LGBTQ-oriented books in schools they believe are too explicit for children. Early in the meeting, that drew a packed crowd of hundreds, School Board President Roxanne McDonald expressed concern that LGBTQ students, quote, do not feel safe because of the, quote, hostility and anger that has recently erupted. Other teachers and speakers echoed her concern. Now we can go through this article the entire way. I'm not going to, but I could. You can read through this article. There are many, many protesters, many, many people that are not in favor of what's going on at Dearborn schools. But regardless of that, the schools, I mean, again, it seems that the schools are they just don't care about what the public opinion is. So it says when Dylan Wigella, a high school teacher in Dearborn, expressed concern in his remarks that posters for Gay Straight Alliance in Dearborn schools were being vandalized and torn down, a member of the crowd shouted out, "Good." So they're very focused, like a laser on all the LGBTQ stuff. And they don't really mention that some of the books that are being challenged are actually not LGBTQ. That throughout the entire article here, it just focuses on LGBTQ books. It doesn't say anything about some of the books that are not LGBTQ. They just have very explicit scenes in them. I've gone through one of them. Half of a Yellow Sun. You've heard excerpts from that book. It's not a book about homosexuality, but it is very explicit. I'll bet you that that's on this list of books. Oh, and look at this. There's a guy with a sign. Adultery, big sin. Homosexuality, big sin. Let's see. Yeah, so it's not just homosexuality here. It's adultery too. There are signs. And of course they say that it's anti-LGBTQ comments, but it's not. It's just anti sex outside of, marriage comments. Let's see. Yeah, I can't really read that sign. So this is something that I'm going to be looking into. There is see. Hitter. Who is this lady? Yeah. I keep on looking through this article and I'm not seeing anything that that says that these aren't just LGBTQ books. Yeah. Detroit Free Press pushes that they're all LGBTQ. They're usually not. I've gone through some of them. Again, read them on the show. You guys can decide for yourself. Detroit Free Press. Actually, yeah, we've documented that they also pay for ads for Governor Whitmer out of their own pocket. Now they spin the story in a way that makes you think that it's just LGBTQ books. It's not. It's about obscene, sexual, graphic images in books, descriptions of sexual acts that should not be there for high schoolers. But the Detroit Free Press has to spin it in a way that they think will win them the culture war. All right, so that's the show for this week. I'm going to be hopefully speaking to Roger Williams throughout this next week. I'm going to be trying to get a hold of Mayor McNally, talk to Jim DeVries. We're going to try and get some answers. Also, I'm going to be watching the Whitmer and Dixon debate, see what all the hullabaloo was about. I missed it yesterday. I'm going to be going over it. I'm going to bring you the important points from it. And, yeah, so you'll get that next time. That's it for this week. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you like my content. Get the little notification bell so that you know when I'm going live and when I have a new video. I'll have those videos of the interviews that I did up very soon. And with that, I hope you guys have a great week. I am Anon Don, and this is the Holmes Politicast.